So welcome, as I have mentioned, the ferret community is kind of isolated. Um, as a lot of people are, there's not really meetings like we used to do. And we figured that the Facebook Live is a way to bring people together and see what people look like. And so actually, I want to thank Barbara for being our speaker. And really, I had a lot of trouble. And last month, we were going to have a speaker on the ferret survey they did, and they canceled 36 hours before.
Oh.
So, and we're trying to get. There's a lot of opportunity for speakers like vets, but vets are always says, "Oh, I'm in surgery at 7 o'clock," so we can't do that. But we wanted, like, here in California, ferrets are, I don't know, sort of under the radar. Now they say ferrets are the third most popular interactive pet. Barbara, do you believe that?
The third most popular interactive pet, as opposed to a non-interactive pet?
Well, and I'm counting fish. I don't even know how many fish I have.
I would say that they probably are third. Although birds, they're fairly easy to take care of, and there's probably a lot of them out there. But I think as far as the impact on a family and the impact on people, I think ferrets are right up there. Because if you've got a ferret in the house, the ferret, the house revolves around the ferret. And they are into everything in your house and every aspect, unless you put them in a room and keep them there. I like having my ferrets around where I'm living. Underfoot. Yes. Stealing things.
What that's like. Now, you can be open with your neighbors? Everybody knows you have a ferret? Are you like the ferret lady on the block?
Pretty much. I have a cutout of a ferret made from plywood that somebody made years ago, and I inherited from somebody. So it's a big white cutout ferret, and we wrapped Christmas lights around him, and he's holding a little Christmas tree, and that sits on my porch all year round. And we take them for walks and things like that. The ones I like are the neighbors' kids. It's like, is that a squirrel? No, it's not a squirrel. What kind of cat is that? It's not a cat. The father comes out. No, it's what did he say? No, that's not a squirrel. That's a skunk or something like that, And I'm like, no, you're wrong too.
Really, I would expect, we used to get that a lot, but now everybody seems to know what a ferret is, and that's kind of given us hope for legalization because there's not that ignorance. When I first did it, people said, is that a mongoose? Is that a possum? And now it's like, oh, my sister has one of those, or I had one of those growing up. You say me in Pittsburgh, there's not that much awareness?
I think it might just be my neighborhood.
Okay.
My neighborhood is very low income and low education level.
Hope your neighbors aren't watching this.
Yeah, hopefully. I doubt it. I doubt it. Well, they're perfectly nice people. It's just they've never had an experience with it. All they know are dogs and cats.
Yeah, that's true. So that segues really nicely. How did you get into ferrets? How did you get into this?
That's been a long, long time. I've owned them for over 30 years.
I'm there with you.
A friend of mine got a ferret, and I thought all the usual stereotypes. I thought they would smell bad. I thought they bit, whatever. And she brought it over to my house, and I had a cat that hissed at her own kittens when she didn't see them for a week. And I thought the cat was going to go after the ferret, and the cat ran up to the ferret. The ferret stopped and stuck her nose out and stared at the cat going, do you want a piece of this?
Oh.
And the cat stopped and looked, and they just touched noses. And the cat sat back and said, that's not a mouse. And I was so impressed with the personality of the ferret that I went and got one, and that was the beginning of a long history of ferrets.
So how many have you had over the years?
Are we counting the shelter or just me?
Oh, just let's say you. And then let's talk about the shelter too, though.
Well, I'm actually officially retired from running the shelter. I'm still helping out. I still answer questions. I'll take in emergencies. If the local humane society gets a ferret, I may take it, but I'm pretty much retired. I'm just getting too old and creaky to be able to do the work
And slow work and money.
cleaning. Well, right now the money's not the problem. Now, once I retire, it probably would be a problem, but I'm just, I have arthritis in my lower back and my knees, and I just can't clean the floor like I want to. But
never ending, is it?
mm-mm. No. And it still isn't. I mean, they're pooping everywhere.
That's true. You don't have them in a special room like I have mine downstairs. It's all tiled. It's bleached every other day. 3 ferrets produce a lot of poop.
Well, I have them in an area. They can run my kitchen, the dining room, and the living room. And then my husband closed in the back porch so they can jump through the dog door and go out onto the back porch and poop all over that too. And they really enjoy the back porch because my husband has a saw out there and he cuts wood and he has stacks of wood. And Jabberwocky likes to go out and he jumps up onto things and climbs on the boards and pushes tools off and hides packages of screws. And he has a lot of fun out there. And then he was taken to, even when it was really hot, he would go out there and sleep at night. He wouldn't come in. And we have these big piles of wood up against the side, and I couldn't get him. So he would end up staying out there all night, and then in the morning he'd come running in. Hi, where's my food?
Oh. So you have Jabberwocky. What are the 2 other ferrets?
Ryder and Ziggy. They're both dark-eyed whites.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and all of them are deaf. I just somehow managed to get all 3 deaf ferrets.
No, my 3 are just beginning to look more and more alike. The fat one is getting skinnier. The dark one's getting lighter. It's like I go look for one and I call them by their name, and it's like, oh, this is the other ferret. I need all 3 of them to know which one I have, which I feel like the horrible ferret parent. I don't know which ferret I have. Well, I have the 3 of them lined up.
Ryder and Ziggy look identical. The only difference is Ryder is just a little smaller. His tail is a little bit ratty. And Ziggy right now has a mast cell tumor on his forehead. Oh. So I have to get them into the vet and get various things done. And then it'll be hard to tell who's who again.
Yeah, well, there's the stories I could tell on that. So is vet care a problem in Pennsylvania, or do they advertise? I mean, do you go to a regular vet or do you have to go to an exotic vet?
Well, I recommend going to an exotic vet because regular vets can kill your ferret, treating it like a dog or a cat. It's just not safe. Unless you really know what's going on, you really need an exotics vet. I've had people take ferrets into regular vets with diarrhea, and they say, okay, well, let's wait 3 days and see what happens. And the ferret could be dead in 3 days. I've had stories of where took a ferret with adrenal disease, and they said it was cancer, and they put it to sleep at age 4. All kind of things like that. But we're really lucky because we have Dr. Robert Wagner here. Now, I don't know how much longer we're going to have him active because he's a year older than I am, and I'm looking forward to retirement. But he is really knowledgeable, and the really great thing is he's fast, and he's very smart, and he can do his own tests. So if you take a ferret in and it has a lump, he goes, let's stick a needle in it. And he'll just take the ferret, the needle in, suck out some cells, put it on a slide. He'll have the vet tech mount it, and then he'll go look at it underneath the microscope and say, lymphoma, or infection, or, something like that. So it's not, you get your results right away, and he does surgery really quickly, so it's actually less expensive to have surgery with somebody that's really experienced. Now, the only thing with Dr. Wagner is he sees people in a clinic setting. So basically, you get herded into the back where you're not normally allowed, and you kind of mill around and try to stay out of the way of the other people that actually work there. And when he does surgery, he doesn't do the whole gown and the heart monitor and everything like that. So it's very inexpensive.
We like that.
I
Vet care can be
do.
very expensive.
Yeah, I mean, when we have another vet, Dr. Ruth Heller out in Murraysville, that actually breeds ferrets, and so she knows ferrets, and she does surgeries. Hers cost more, but she has, Dr. Wagner basically rents space in the back of Northborough Veterinary Hospital. And so he doesn't have overhead. Ruth Heller has overhead. She has employees and insurance and a building and all of that. So it costs more, but she does surgeries well. You just won't see a neater stitch line than with her, because you get your ferret back and it's all neatly cleaned up and all beautifully stitched, and it's different. Dr. Wagner sort of takes a ferret and goes bloop, 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 and here, you clean the blood off, that kind of thing. And he's, you're taking that ferret home that night with Dr. Wagner, and you take care of your ferret. And once you've done that, though, a couple times, I really prefer that, because I care a lot about the ferret, so I watch him very closely. And I can give water shots, and I can feed them every 3 hours and things like that. Whereas a lot of veterinarians' offices will just put them in a cage and come back the next day. Well, if it lives, it lives, that kind of thing. Now, Ruth Heller, I've heard, takes them home with her at night if she's done a surgery, but she lets me take mine home after surgery too, because she knows I can take care of them.
Well, our rule is try to avoid surgery.
Well, yeah. Dr. Wagner doesn't do nearly as many surgeries anymore since the Deslorelin implant came out. It works better than surgery.
Cheaper too. Get that first part of the year when it's $200 or $300 per ferret.
Yeah.
If people who don't know, Deslorelin implant is blocks the signal from the brain to the, I don't know,
to the adrenal gland.
No, yeah, that's true, because a neutered or a sterilized ferret doesn't have the gonads. So anyway, it's been a great prevention on adrenal, and we've seen a great reduction in insulinoma as well.
Really? Now, see, I've heard people tell stories of after they got the implant that their ferret developed insulinoma. And one of the theories, like Dr. Heller had said, that she thought what was happening was the adrenal gland spits out more than just the sex hormone. They also can spit out some adrenaline. So the adrenaline can, sort of rile, I don't know what you say, would keep things going. And they have various hormones and cortisol-like things that it puts out. And so when you give them the Deslorelin implant, it will calm that down, and suddenly you can see that the ferret has insulinoma. And that's something that you need to watch for. But I have personally not had a lot of trouble with that.
Well, I wasn't doing very well with ferret lifespans. They were averaging 6 years old until the Deslorelin came, and now they're a little over 8. Seems to be the average. I mean, they just come with an expiration tag on them, and when they hit 8 years old,
you count every minute as a bonus.
Yeah, it's 2 extra years, and it's no surgery. I mean, those adrenal surgeries, just horrible to put a ferret through. So I'm a big champion of the Deslorelin implant.
I love it. I really like it. In some of the testing he did, now the Deslorelin implants that they have now don't seem to be as strong as the ones that they originally had. They're using the 4.7 milligram implant. And at first we were getting like double that. And those really worked. And that actually shrunk some of the adrenal tumors in some ferrets. And now it's almost, they're not nearly as good. Dr. Wagner has said he doesn't know if it's shipping or if they're just cutting costs by not putting as much of the chemical in or what's going on. But
I've never heard that. If anybody knows, put a comment. Oh,
is there any questions?
no, just to plug for Dr. Cote, who does a lot of appreciated rescue work. And she sends the ferrets home. Now, let me ask you,
Oh.
which is a very controversial, and even I can't figure it out. Not that I'm that smart. What do you feed them? What's a good diet for a ferret that
Oh,
we can
God.
have access to?
Ferret food is such a subject. I mean, you can ask 15 people and you'll get 15 different answers. Over the years and all the research and the reading and looking at my ferrets and seeing how they did, I really think a balanced raw diet is the best. It gives them more moisture than they get eating the dry kibble.
Now, what do you mean by raw diet? I just see mice, piled up on a plate. People post videos of their ferrets eating, frozen mice. I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, Jabber loves frozen mice. That is such a treat. I've had ferrets, just shelter ferrets. I would have one of my ferrets in with the shelter ferrets, and I would give them a mouse, and they're like, nom, 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 nom. Their eyes are closed. And, oh, they love it. And the other ferret goes, "What are you doing?" And looks at it, and the ferret goes, "Eee!" and pulls it away. And you don't see them fighting over kibble, but they will fight over mice. And then I would hear lots of screaming. Next thing you know, one of the regular shelter ferrets had decided that it wanted mouse, and they're fighting over the mouse. So I had to put in two. And then a few days later, I'm hearing screeching again and realize a third ferret has decided it likes mice. So now I have to put in three. And that went on until like all four of the ferrets in the cage were eating mice. And the nice thing about the mice is, according to Bob Church, they're a nice nutritional little packet. They have the bulk and the fur, they have the bones, they have the meat and the fat in a good proportion for a ferret. And once a ferret starts eating the mice, they really, really like them. And I think what it is some kind of instinctual wiring goes off, and a little bulb goes bing. And when they bite into a mouse and start chewing on it, they realize something in their body says, this is good. Now, most of the people who feed raw don't just feed mice because you think raw is expensive. Mice are worse. The raw diet that I'm talking about is like a mix of raw bone, meat, fat, organ meats, things like that. The Holistic Ferrets on Facebook have a nice website, and they have information about how to do the right mix. Some people buy the commercially ground that has the ground up bone and the meat.
Now, where do you buy this? I mean, I buy my pet supplies on Chewy.com, and I guess I have not, entered in ground up mice.
No, you don't get ground up mice. The ferrets eat those whole.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had a few shelter volunteers that had to learn to deal with the mice, because sometimes what they'll do is they'll eat the heads first. Apparently that's the most nutritious part. And then they'll stash the body in the back corner of the litter pan.
Oh, how lovely.
Yes. And then sometimes they will eat everything but leave a little pile of guts and a tail. And so it took some getting used to, but the frozen mice I was ordering online from Rodent Pro, and The other stuff, the raw diet, you can get from a grocery store or a butcher. And the commercial grind you can get from most pet stores for cats. You want to use the cat grind because it's smaller. The bone pieces are a little smaller.
Close the door. The TV is on now.
But if you're feeding kibble, which I also feed kibble because I never know if, somebody needs to watch my ferrets. The kibble, I basically read the ingredients and I want to see meat in the first several ingredients at least. And I don't want corn, soy, wheat, and things like that. The current food that I'm using is Origin cat, kitten, chicken, and turkey. The first 14 ingredients are meat in that food. And it has a very nice list of ingredients.
All right. Okay, I'll remember that. I was doing one on Chewy and went to reorder and it's not available, which is one reason I know people get mad at me when I say Marshalls, but Marshalls is always there and Marshalls is not changed. But Melinda gave me a boatload of grief. So I mix it with Weissong now because
Weissong's a good food. Well, I used to feed Evo, EVO.
Yeah, that's it. That's now available on Chewy.
Somebody brought a class action lawsuit, and then the company was bought by Procter and Gamble or something, and they tanked it. And then I knew that was going to happen. Now, Origin is the next best thing, in my opinion. And somebody's bringing a class action lawsuit against them, and I really think it's the big pet food manufacturers are trying to put them out of business. Because if they sue them, then what they did was they sued them and they bought the company, and then they just sold what they had in stock and then discontinued it. And if Origin goes, I'm going to be very upset because Origin is a really good food. The Weissong, the newer one with the digestive formula seems to be good, but some of the ferrets got projectile poop from the previous version of the Weissong because they apparently put flaxseed in it and it was too much fiber for the ferrets. And and then Marshall's is not the death sentence that some people would have you believe it is. It's not the best. It usually has corn in it. You want to avoid the version of Marshall's that has peas in it because some ferrets get bladder stones from the peas. But the regular Marshall's or the Marshall chicken, it's not that bad, but it's not as good a food as the Origin. One of the ways that you can tell is that they don't eat as much of the Origin and they digest more of it, so they have less poop. When they're eating Marshalls, they have lots of poop. And with the Origin, it's about maybe a third of
Really?
Yeah, it's a lot less poop. It's more compact. It's darker. It seems like the lighter the poop, the more plant fiber and undigested things are in there.
Dark poop is better.
A little dark, you don't want black, but
oh, we've seen all kinds of poop. It scares the crap. It's fun, but it scares the crap out of me with some of the poop you see, and well, to worry about it, no, it's usually better the next day.
What I love are the people on Facebook, which I am one. When their ferret leaves a poop for them that's in an interesting shape, they take a photo and post it. I've had ferrets leave little heart shapes. I've had one make a pretzel. I had one that looked like an arrow. And I think it's hilarious.
All right, so we have a plug here from let's see, what happened to it? It was for, where are all the comments? Franken something. What happened to all the comments? Franken, is there a rodent raw food called Franken something?
Frankenprey is a
That's
raw
it.
diet.
A raw diet. So Karen Pace, I remember the name, is promoting
Yeah.
that.
We make zombie soupies. It's
Oh,
brains, liver, and kidneys, but that needs to have bone and meat and other things like that. Somebody else mentioned Stella and Chewy's, which is a good dehydrated raw food. It's nicely balanced. You get the cat version. It doesn't have many big bone chunks because ferrets that aren't terribly used to eating raw will just eat around the bone.
can't
But
blame them.
Stella, that gets expensive. I give mine Stella and Chewy's in the morning, and they snarf it up, and then they eat kibble, the origin, throughout the day. But there are some other decent foods out there, but raw is better. Um, you don't want to feed the dehydrated raw without dehydrating it. You want to put water on it so that they get the moisture. But it's very convenient. You know, it's dehydrated. It's lightweight. It stores well if you keep it closed.
Oh, well, anyway, let's switch topics here. I first heard of you during the PBS Pursuit of Excellence. How
Yeah.
did that start? That was a great show.
Well, apparently PBS hired an Australian film company to make a series of videos about basically us crazy people that, you know, they have one for dogs, they had one for some other animal I can't remember, and then they had Ferret's Pursuit of Excellence. And they sent out email to various people that they could find on the internet, to shelters and breeders, that they initially were really wanting to do a bit on the ferret shows. And about half of it is about ferret shows. And they ended up going out to the Buckeye Bash and recording. Um, wow, something just sounded like it blew up.
I think it was on your side.
No, it wasn't. I think it was on.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Maybe it's our AV Pro.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're still here. That's a good thing.
But they got a picture of my bloody finger because my ferret bit me. She was good through the whole judging, and I guess she had had enough, and she bit me. And they ran in and zoomed into that. I think, God, I can't remember her name now. The one lady got her nose bitten, and they got that on the video.
Of course.
But so they videotaped there, but they had been calling around to other people. What they wanted to do was go to these houses and interview these people, try to get them to say inflammatory things about how other ferrets aren't as good, and I don't know what else. And they contacted a friend named Chris Sane, and she had no interest whatsoever being videotaped, and so she gave them my name. And then they made some phone calls, and so I was talking to them and telling the stories about the ferrets and the crazy things they've done. And they're like, we hear you wrote a song. And so I sang a little bit of it over the phone, and they're like, that's really great. So when they came to video, I mean, it was rough because that was at the height of the shelter. I had probably 35 ferrets here. It was a lot of poop, and I had to clean really quickly, and I was working full time, and I took a day off work for this, and they showed up at 8 a.m. and they didn't leave until 8 p.m.
Oh,
wow. And they basically interviewed me for a couple of hours, and I discovered something about myself that you'll say things that you don't normally would say if they interview you for that long. True. And that's where the whole dead ferrets in the freezer came in.
Oh, I remember that. I didn't think of that until.
Yeah, and then I would take them as a group and get them cremated and divide up the ferrets, like, okay, you get a teaspoon, you get a teaspoon, you get a teaspoon. So they were communal ashes, but it was much cheaper to do it that way. And then they had me sing the song. After they interviewed me for hours, they had me sing the song. And then they had me sing it again. They did one with long shots and one with some close-ups. And I had to hold my ferret, Orangutan, who about halfway through was uninterested in being held any longer. He was young at the time. And I really didn't think it went all that well. And I didn't know if they were going to use my song or anything. And then when I saw the thing, I was astonished to find out that they basically used my song to tie the whole second half of this video together. And they had other people that they went to after me. They got a picture of Barb Amschut's freezer, and they implied that it was my freezer. They got somebody, they made them rebury a ferret that had died for the thing. One of the things that they did at my house was I had told them how this one ferret I had would get underneath the rectangular litter pan, the travel cat pans, and would get under it and walk all over the floor, and bump along, and it was hilarious. Well, the day they were there filming, this ferret was not interested. And so they tied a string onto it and made it pop around as if there was a ferret under there.
Oh.
And so some of the stuff was set up, but the pictures of the ferrets opening their cage were definitely from here. And they definitely did that all by themselves. They learned how to open their cages. But it was interesting. But by the time they were gone, I was so ready to have them out of there. I didn't care if they used anything. But I was very pleasantly surprised. And then some people were a little unhappy that they had used my entire song. Yes, Barb Carlson sang and sang and sang.
Ferret people are difficult. They're very hard to please.
Yeah, well,
So
it takes all kinds. And
it does. You would think ferret people would be more fun, but some of them are so serious.
Well, there's plenty of arguments that happen. And, they were trying to get me to say bad things about other people at the shows. And I just wouldn't do it. And I was just kind of laughing at them. And I said, of course, when you have something that you care this much about and you feel that you need to take care of this animal, they're your baby and you're responsible, you get a lot of high emotion. And that's where a lot of these feuds online happen, because everybody is just trying to do the best that they can for their ferrets. And some people who are perhaps not quite as far along in in life feel they get a very black and white view. And so this is, the ones I like are Marshall food is poison in a bag. It'll kill your ferret. If you feed Marshalls, you're killing your ferret. And that's not true, because if it was true, there would be no ferrets to buy.
Yes, that's very true.
Obviously,
I like Marshalls. They've been really nice to us.
Well, yeah, they've donated. I mean, when it first came out, it was very fishy, and
It's true. It was mink food.
Yeah, it made the ferrets kind of stinky, and their poop was stinky. And we found that switching to something with basically chicken seemed to cut down on the odor. And I mean, I learned when I first got ferrets, I didn't know anything. I was, the typical Neo, bathing the ferret too much. Now, Jabberwocky is 2.5. He's a whole ferret. He has not been neutered, and he has never had a bath in his life, and he smells fine. So now I'm not counting what he does out in the water dish in the kitchen every morning, because he usually digs in the water and gets himself wet from the shoulders. You know, he buries his head and digs, but you can rinse them off and towel them dry, and most dirt comes off. And unless you have a ferret that's whole and in season or adrenal, you usually don't really need to bathe them. And if you're getting if you're getting a lot of odor from the ferret, you know, basically you need to look at the ears and make sure they don't have an ear infection or ear mites or things like that.
Or even the linen. Anyway, I just got nagged, which happens a lot. We're supposed to, I think, I told them 7:30, 7:40. I want to ask you, Barbara, because there's a lot of people who have no experience with ferrets. So, and they're thinking about it. In fact, you know, when we were setting up, I got that call from someone. What would you tell people who are interested in ferrets but not knowledgeable?
Get out on the internet and learn. It's important to read a bunch of different places on the internet, because some of the stuff isn't really quite right, and then there's a lot of difference of opinion. But you should basically educate yourself about ferrets and what they're about, because they are not dogs and they are not cats, and they are expensive. Their food is expensive, the vet care is expensive, and they will trash your house if you don't know how to ferret proof. So basically, I recommend lots of education.
Well, you know, that's hard for Californians, because I get calls from people. I get people show up on my doorstep.
Yeah,
you know, we were thinking about getting a ferret and we want to see one. It's like, oh my God, is this a setup? I mean, it's like, oh,
yeah, really.
Come on, you're wearing a nice green uniform. Come on downstairs. So I'm in no sympathy with Californians. I've never had any undercover people come here.
Well, you don't need to be in person to learn about ferrets. There's
nothing like hands-on experience.
Well, true, but I've taught people how to brush their teeth and clip their nails, and you can do videos of it. I had an interesting thing the other day. The local humane animal rescue in Pittsburgh asked me to come down and talk to them about ferrets. And in the discussion, I had mentioned that I've done blood draws on ferrets myself. I was doing research with Dr. Wagner about distemper titers. Oh. And I've done a lot of blood draws on ferrets. And the way I do it is I scruff them, and I find that little hollow around their collarbone, and I put the needle in at a 45-degree angle towards the back foot, and you can pull up the blood. And there was a veterinarian there and a whole bunch of vet techs, and they said, well, can you show us? And so they gave me this ferret that they were going to euthanize because it bit people. Oh. And they had given it to me, but the ferret was fine. It was playing. They didn't even know what a playing ferret looked like. So I take this ferret that's a little jumpy, and I managed to get the blood out in one try. And the look on the vet's face was priceless. And the vet techs are saying that's the opposite of how we were taught. They're taught to go up, like up the neck, instead of down into the clavicle. But anyway, yeah, well, educate yourself if you want to get a ferret. Read everything you can get your hands on online. There's a lot of good sources of information.
Well, we always try to discourage people. I think, you really know what you're getting into.
Oh yeah,
some people do, and some people are amazing ferret owners. And
well, I tell people, a ferret will knock over your drink, hide your socks, pull your shoes under the couch, knock the phone off the hook, spill your drink, empty the garbage can, and that's like in the first 5 minutes. And if you don't think that's cute, you shouldn't have a ferret.
Oh, that's true. You need a certain perspective.
Yeah, you've got to be willing to take a certain amount of chaos.
You have to admit, these 40 minutes went by really quick, didn't they?
Yeah, I can talk for hours.
I know what. It's 10:40 over in your time. It's 7:40
Yeah,
here.
I need to go to bed sometime.
I have to eat dinner. Really a big thank you. Anybody who's watching this, this is legalizeferrets.org, so you can find the website, sign up for the newsletter, find us on Facebook. And we try to do this every third Thursday. We're getting into candidate season. Hopefully we'll find legislators who will talk to us, but I haven't found any yet. I'm getting kind of alarmed that people running for office don't want to talk to us. But
Yeah.
yeah, welcome to California. Anyway, really, Barbara, I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. Say hi to Jabberwocky. Wish I saw the other two. My three are downstairs. But thank you for everybody who's tuned in and everybody who watches this off the record. How many people do we have now? Well, only 15. But
that's decent.
well, I'm sure other people will see it.
And then they will see it later.
It'll be on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. Go to bed. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Totally appreciate it.